Good afternoon. How are you? Well, there's a little bit of a drizzle, but it's 82 degrees, which is nice. And there's a slight wind about 4 miles an hour. So we thank Thomas Jefferson for this weather report today. The fight continues, but we get more clues as to what it means. I'm talking about the withdrawal or the continuance of the fight by Biden to be reelected in November. Now, unambiguously and with great certainty, Biden's press secretary and Biden himself have said that he's in the race to stay and that he's running. And what reaction do we get from those like Pelosi and others who said whatever he decides to do is okay? They won't accept that. And so they're putting a push on him. And they're calling it passing the torch. And I'll get into that a little bit. But let's analyze this a little bit. Biden was elected by millions of Democrats who voted in primaries, number one. These are the party rules. Now, this goes back to the 60s and early 70s when the complaint was that heavyset men in back rooms decided who the candidate was for president and vice president, and the public and democracy be damned. And so we became democratic, not just in name, but in practice when choosing our national presidential representatives nominees. The interesting thing about those pushing Biden to leave were, I just want to ask him, don't you think this is serious? You should think about withdrawing and saying, well, I'm not telling you what to do, but that's what you should do. Think about it, think about it, think about it, think about it, think about it. And he did. And then he saw several things happening. He saw not only was Pelosi feeding others into the system, but his former mate in the West Wing, Obama, was also doing machinations to compromise Biden's position, continuing to run for office. And of course, they're doing this while he has COVID. Now, Biden has convinced me he's Irish by the fact that he's angry about all of this. He's angry about the disloyalty. He's angry about them ignoring the rules. And now they're ignoring their own statements that, well, I just want to tell him about it, and then whatever he decides to do, I'm with him. Remember that, Pelosi? Well, you didn't do it. Schiff, you didn't do it. And my old boss, Zoe Lofgren, didn't. And why didn't they do it? Well, they say it had to do with a single performance in a debate. I don't know, how does that compare to Access Hollywood or Trump on a daily basis doing the crazy shit he does? And the answer is, it doesn't really amount to that much, given his age and his apparent ability, not with the speed, alacrity, youth, and jump that some would like. Those ageists who discriminate against people based on age. And yes, his step is slower. His stutter may be more of a problem in his older age. But you can't accomplish what he did as president if you're not really functioning. And so he was and is. So what have we had? Well, we have a shift. Now that Biden is believed that he is really going to continue to run, and we're talking about from the Friday to Saturday, today, period, the Democrats are going to do something over the weekend to push him over the top and to challenge the decision they said they would accept if he made it. Now, those of you who follow the high-tech press are familiar with Wired magazine. Now, it goes back many years, and when I really couldn't afford it, I could swear I was at Columbia, still undergraduate. I was getting issues of it and reading it and buying it and so forth. There's an article in there you have to read because it's about the Silicon Valley billionaires and what this election means to them. Biden has a proposed tax on unrealized capital gains that affects households worth more than $100 million. Well, that's not my household, and if it's yours, congratulations. But if Biden gets elected, there will be a 25% tax on the capital gain for that house if it's more than $100 million. Now, this is not a speculation on my part. This was a conversation with high tech, and they are upset with that proposal of Biden. Now, but there's more. That's in Biden's budget, by the way. Now, the Dems, who were part of these high-tech groups in Silicon Valley and so forth, they decided to go from the Democrats, and they were leaning toward the Republicans, right? And does that explain why Vance is the vice president on the ticket for the Republicans? Yes, it does. Part of it. I mean, he serves several purposes, but that's one of them, including the fact that he is among these people, you see? So, first of all, if you want to test my accuracy, go online and get Wired. As far as I know, it's still free. And tech is not just upset with that big balloon on their wealthy homes. They're also concerned about little tech, startups. They're concerned about policing cryptocurrency and blockchains. They're concerned about reining in AI. All of this in Biden's playbook. So Biden is, for them, they're invading Putin. And they believe that if Biden is elected, he'll want more. Now, my former boss, Zoe Lofgren, represents Silicon Valley. She said she was independent. I take her at her word. But I've also taken these elected representatives at their word, that they would respect what Biden said he was going to do, and he decided he's running. And that's it. They tried to wear him down. They tried to bully him down, and they couldn't do it. Now, the campaign that they're putting on, and there's an ad that's going to start appearing in a couple of venues, and one of them's D.C., which is to affect the elected representatives. You get it? And what does it say? Pass the torch. Pass the torch. Biden, pass the torch. We love you dearly. Ah, Johnny, we miss you. It's kind of an Irish two-step. Ah, you're wonderful. And by the way, get the hell out of here. That's their message. And Biden's not buying it, but they're pushing it. And so I searched out the ad because I'm curious about it. And it has people young. I can't, I've lectured in high schools and colleges and so forth. And the colleges are more difficult because they look so young to me. But there are several people of that age who are in this commercial. And this commercial is put together by Democrats and one prominent Republican, Steve Schmidt. And he's always been suspicious to me, because years ago, when I was appearing on CNN, he would appear there, and we would exchange words on the air, and he was full-blown Bush McCain in the future. But now, is he the devil within? Another enemy within? Accompanying the Democrats within? Who couldn't force, by implicit intimidation, Biden to step back. So now they're going to run an ad that says, pass the torch. And I think it's ironic. I wonder if it's a Freudian slip. Because I imagine tiki torches, like were in Charlottesville, which in fact, as a symbol of racism, they prompted Biden to decide to run the first time. And so I think we should be extinguishing torches, not lighting them, and treating the torches as the fire that will burn down the Democratic House if we don't get smart. But the almighty dollar is knocking on their door. And don't for a moment believe it had to do with that single day at the debate. Oh yeah, that was terrible. Would you give up your grandfather if you saw that and say, that's it? Well, that's it. You know, nothing we can do about it. Most people deal with illness by asking you, have you recovered? Because of Holly's double lung transplant, I get that question all the time. And it's hard to parse it because in Holly's case, you don't recover, you manage against infections and rejections. And if you do that well enough, you don't recover, you continue. So Holly has 14-year-old lungs that now let her run up a hill, but she has to be very careful to take this other medicine. Okay, so Biden had an absolutely terrible evening. No quarrel about that. And so then after that, we're asking him again at his age about his pause, his stutter in his voice, the fact that he speaks softly. We have microphones to deal with that, by the way. That he's not going to run the 440, that he walks differently. But he has been running this government and accomplishing what he has. So, am I saying that Democrats are engaged in a disinformation campaign? Yes, as to their motives, as to the facts. My unscientific sample shows people responding to Biden's fight, taking his side against the bullies. You don't bully an Irishman. And I don't know how much of his blood is Irish, but you don't bloody a man or woman who knows their mind, who offers themselves up for service, not for self-aggrandism, who offers up a fight to retain a republic and a democracy, and to beat back the efforts at making it a monarchy that would stop the moneyed interest from occupying our government through its agents, the elected officials that we thought until the last several days would stand by the nominee of the Democratic Party. And they're not. So our message remains the same. We have to keep Biden's back. You can send $5, $10, do that. Write a note to a neighbor or friend. Make sure you vote. If you have more time and are active and you want to run as an elector, then do that. But do something. Gabbing matters. Our voices will be heard. They're being heard. I think they're being heard by Biden. I have lots of people writing me, and probably you do as well, saying how they're calling the White House. They're sending notes to Biden. They are actively supporting Biden. They don't want him to quit. They want to keep going ahead. So when they take half-assed polls and half-truths and then betray a person who has satisfied the Democratic Party rules and is for all intents and purposes the designated nominee for President of the United States again, you stand by that. You stand by that. And so this is more complicated than Bobby Kennedy's statement, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. Biden is going. And the tough that he's fighting is his own party. And if they keep badgering and beating him up, what they're doing, no matter what program or plan they would put together, they're compromising our ability to win the White House. And the proposal they have, well, that we've now learned, is that Pelosi believes that it's not a given that Vice President Harris would assume the position of the nominee for president. Oh, no. She thinks that we should have an audition. She thinks somebody else could be president, somebody else be vice president. So those who are prepared to accept, and I'm not being critical here, accept as a settlement that another person we supported and elected should, if for any reason Biden had to withdraw at any time, now or after he's elected, if that should come to pass, we're confident she could take over. And so some part of us says the fact that at the beginning of this campaign to remove Biden, there was no question that if that happened, he would be replaced with Kamala. No more. No more. And I don't know if Schmidt is in the room, the Republican for Bush and McCain, who's been appearing, to my way of thinking, preening for approval as a turncoat to the Democrats, having been a very active and fiery Republican advocate. He's got a deep voice. He's very he's a gifted speaker and a gifted advocate, and we have to be careful to know who our friends are, because this politics is a nasty business, and now it's on our side of the aisle. And people we believe were patriots, well, they were, but sometimes people start believing in their own sainthood, and that's what we're dealing with now. So that's what I got to say on this somewhat muggy but somewhat cooler day, and I'm hoping tomorrow will be even better, and I'll see you then. All the best. Bye-bye.